I suppose I ought to preface this by saying that I do not mean any disrespect toward anyone who, after carefully and prayerfully discerning their spiritual needs, has decided to give up chocolate or TV or alcohol for Lent. If those genuinely are the causes of the bad fruit in your life, as today's gospel says, absolutely do it. But I'm drawing from my own experience here. If you're like me, I used to give up chocolate or TV or alcohol for Lent because either I didn't know what else to do, or I knew that there were far larger needs of reform in my life, but I simply lacked the courage and the will to do anything about it. And so what I wanted to share with you, and like I said, we've got 3 days, so you still have some time to go home and talk to Jesus about what is his desire for the great transforming of Lent in your life, and to open your heart to receive whatever the Lord may have in store for you. And there's a few key tips, there's a few key things that you can do, simple things that you can do to make real reform in your life seem less daunting, seem less intimidating. Number one is to take an honest inventory of the bad fruit in your life. And to go back, and you can choose as much time in your life, you could choose yesterday, or last week, or the last year, or if you really got time, you can bite off your whole life. But think about those moments when that bad fruit was present in your life, when you felt overwhelmed by anxiety, or frustration, or disappointment, or despair, or very real spiritual pain. And then begin to tell Jesus the story. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. And don't get all tied up in emotion yet. Just tell Jesus what happened like you were writing a news story. Where were you? Who were you with? What did you say and do? What did they say and do? And then after you have shared that narrative with the Lord, tell him honestly how you may still feel about that narrative in your life. Lord, this still makes me angry. Lord, this still makes me sad. Lord, this still makes me anxious or frustrated or disappointed. And hold absolutely nothing back in that description. Because it's not per se sinful to feel any of those things. Many people struggle to give themselves permission to bring real authenticity to the way that they still may feel about some event or some person from their past. And then the third step is the most important one and perhaps the most difficult one. And that is acknowledging the full truth of the narrative. Lord, this is what happened. And acknowledging the full and understandable and human emotions that still may be attached to that narrative in your life. Say to the Lord, I want to know how to respond to this narrative and to the emotions attached to this narrative in a way that brings honor and glory to you. And I'll warn you in advance about your own personal reaction to that petition. You might think, what? Am I really praying for that person? Or you might say, there's just nothing that can be done. Which is true as long as you remain the central actor. As long as you see whatever the matter is as your question to answer, or your problem to solve, or your conflict to settle, I guarantee you that you will fail so often that you will quickly become discouraged. Get rid of that, and let's go back to giving up chocolate for Lent. So be very persistent in making Jesus the central actor. It's not about what are you going to do this Lent. It is about releasing yourself to allow the Lord to go to work in you in a way that perhaps you have never allowed him to go to work in you before. Another warning I will give you is, this may not be pleasant. You ever get a splinter when you were a kid? And maybe this didn't happen the first time you got a splinter. I remember the second time I got a splinter, I was like, there's no way I'm telling Mom about this. Because she's going to grab that needle and get in there and start digging around. And that hurts worse than the splinter. And so understand that the action of grace in your life is not always a pleasant thing. And if we're basing our decisions on how it makes us feel, it may be something that we would never choose. So let's go back to giving up TV for Lent. I encourage all of you to persist. Because you see, nothing of this, nothing that has ever happened, and nothing of how you feel about what has happened is a mystery to God. It's not as though God ever says, sorry, I didn't see that coming. And I don't really know what to do now, so you're just going to have to deal with it on your own. No, Jesus says every time. And he reminds you that when he was hanging on the cross, he was thinking about you by name, knowing everything that you would encounter and endure in this world. And perhaps most importantly, that if you were left alone, there would be nothing you could do about it. And that is the message of our crucified Lord. That's why I'm up here. So that you will know that regardless of what you encounter in this world, regardless of what you endure in this world, regardless of what you suffer in this world, you are never alone. And you will always have recourse to me. And that is what I love about Lent, is because this is the time of our lives that Holy Mother Church, being the great mother and the great teacher that she is, she sets this time in our lives aside so that we can meet our Lord in a secluded place, in a private place. And we can lay everything in his hands. And when we ask him with sincere and contrite hearts, Lord, this is where I need you. I don't know how to respond to this in a way that brings honor and glory to you, but Lord, that's what I want. And that's what I'm asking you to accomplish for me. And Jesus always responds to that petition in the same way. Daughter or son, go now, because your faith has saved you. And that's why I can so confidently say that when your eyes open on Easter morning and your feet hit the floor, you will rise and you will see your risen Lord in a way that you have never seen him before.